Hi, this is Joe Zaza with ASD Management. We're going to do section 4 today of our discussion on ambulatory surgery center development and management. And we're going to finish up the pre-development section. In the last video, we talked about developing financial projections, but there's a lot more to pre-development than financial projections. And as I like to say, and I said it in the last video, surgery centers generally are successes or failures before they're built. So let's really focus on the pre-planning phase and make sure that we've got this thing ready to go and crisp as we get the development section moving forward. So in the last section, we developed very good financial conservative projections. Now we're going to kind of structure the deal, and we're going to put together what I call an investment summary. And it's going to discuss the location and your real estate plan, who the potential parties are going to be involved in it, how much the units are going to cost if it's going to be a joint venture, how much equity is being raised, the operating structure. Typically these days we use limited liability companies, and that will be generally what you're going to have. If you've got a partner if it's a hospital physician joint venture and you've got a 501c3 partner, which means a not-for-profit, there are going to be certain restrictions on the governance, and those need to be discussed in the investment summary. And then how is it going to be managed? Who's going to manage the venture? What's their background? And a development timeline of, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is how much units are going to cost, all the things I talked about, and then what's the plan and when we're going to open. That, along with the financial projections, is the core of your business plan. The next thing I would suggest you do is that if you're a hospital, or if you're a group of physicians working with your hospital, or if you're just a group of physicians, is to then develop a letter of intent based on this investment summary and financial projections we just talked about, to make sure that everybody understands key provisions of the deal. Now, one other thing I would like to see in the investment summary is a very detailed explanation of the governance. I touched on it if it's with a 501c3, but there's going to be things that people are going to wonder about, like how many board members are there going to be, and what are the rights of the partners? You know, are there going to be supermajority rights over certain key items? And the second thing to think about would be, what happens upon death or disability, or is there going to be a non-compete? So there's going to be certain key provisions that we want to walk through with our clients so that everybody understands way ahead of time how the venture structurally is going to work, and the governance of it and the management of it. And then those terms will then be turned into your partnership agreement, which is in an LLC called an operating agreement. And that's what's going to govern the venture. But it's much more cost effective to discuss those items up front and not have to pay high legal fees negotiating those points. So we've put our investment summary together. We've got our financial projections attached to it. We've got a letter of intent that everybody understands and agrees on, that says, all right, this is how this venture is going to work. At that point in time, you take that investment summary and your financial projections, and that becomes your business plan, and you go shop financing and go talk to the different banks about what you're requiring in terms of debt, and that's based on your sources and uses of funds that we discussed last time. You also need to pick an attorney to help with the development of your offering and your private placement memorandum, because if you're going to sell units in a LLC, that's a security. And as a security, it's going to require, there's certain regulatory things that are required, and you need a healthcare attorney that understands surgery center deals to help you with that. Healthcare attorneys are extraordinarily important, and they are a key component of the success of these ventures. So now you're going to put your offering document together while you're shopping your financing. At that point in time, you go out and what's called syndicate the deal, which means that all the partners who want to be in the deal are now going to write their checks and say, we want to own units in this venture. Now, how many units can they buy in a venture? Well, I like to make these things simple. If it's going to be a 50-50 deal, and the hospital, and I'm going to use a hospital physician joint venture most of the time during these discussions because it's the most complex. let's say the hospital owns 50 units and the physicians are going to own 50 units. Can one doc own all 50 units? Well, no, that's not really going to accomplish your goals here. So you typically have a minimum number of units a physician can buy in and a maximum number of units a physician can buy in. And the idea is to have a good cross-section of surgeons in the venture, because really at the end of the day, as I said, volume is king. And if you have enough volume from your physicians, you're going to be in the best shape, okay? So extraordinarily important that you have not one physician owning too many units in the venture. The last thing you're going to do after you've secured your financing, you've put your money in, is you select an architect and a contractor. Now, and an equipment planning firm, which is even as important, just as important. Finding a good architect who understands healthcare is extraordinarily important. And it's really, really essential to make sure they've built other ambulatory surgery centers and they understand the flow of those centers. But we have our nurses work with the architects from an operational standpoint so that they're doing this from a practical standpoint of people who are working in an OR every day, working in a surgery center every day, and really focus on throughput. And a good healthcare architect can save you a ton of money. Let me give an example, all right? If you have pre-op in one section of the building and recovery in another section of the building, it's going to require you to have more staff than if you had pre-op and recovery together with a nurse's station in the middle so that you can use overflow in the mornings, in the evening. To the point where it may cost you 2 FTEs, and at $40 an hour, you can do the quick math on that, but it's going to be, with benefits, about $100,000 per employee. It could cost you $200,000 a year infinitely if you designed the surgery center improperly and not used a healthcare architect. So those people are very important. As you negotiate your deal with the contractor, it is very important that you have penalties in place if they are behind, you really make them understand how important it is that we're going to alleviate change orders. So a construction manager typically is with the architectural firm, and they'll be assisting with that piece. So now, where are we? Well, we're ready to begin development. We've put our business plan together. We started with our financial projections. We've put our deal together. We've got everybody on board with the letter of intent. We've hired a really good healthcare law firm. People have put their money in. We've syndicated the venture. We've selected the correct bank. We've selected the correct equipment planner, a good architect, a good contractor who built many of these things. And we are ready to go with the development and getting this thing up and running. So in the next section, we're going to discuss the true development process of getting a surgery center off the ground and licensed. Again, if you have any questions, please email me at www.asdmanagement.com. Thank you.